Hello guys and welcome to my first gym video. It's going to be about the most undervalued factor when choosing gym exercises, which is enjoyment. This topic, I want to discuss it because I don't see it being talked about enough, and currently there are many influencers shoving science-based approaches and EMG analysis down our throats, trying to tell us how to choose exercises, but I don't think those are really optimal ways to choose an exercise you should do. But before I proceed, guys, I just want to say don't do steroids, please, and always train safely, as one of our best YouTubers has said.
Safety is number one priority.
I would like to additionally say that I will not be citing any studies, and I will say what I have learned from my experience and what I have read from studies and what I have learned from different coaches. But I just cannot be bothered to look over studies constantly and show them to you. So if you do have any disagreements with me or would like to actually add something to what I have said, please feel free to do so in the comments below. Now, I would like to state my lifting street cred as it is. I can lift 170 kilograms Romanian deadlift for 10 repetitions. I am 178 centimeters tall, 78 kilos, and my arms are 15.5 inches. Do what you will with that information, those are just the stats. So before I get into the enjoyment factor, I want to say that there are two factors which are the most important, and they should always be the most important. Number one, as I already mentioned, safety. Do not do something that can injure you, you feel pain or discomfort on. Just do not. Also, number two, you have to choose an exercise which will target the muscle that you want to train. Yeah, you might want to train biceps, but if you are doing a tricep exercise, you're essentially doing nothing. So yeah, those take priority over the enjoyment factor because clearly they're necessary. But then, as I said, I think the science-based approaches are a bit blown out of proportion, and I think we should choose an exercise based on the enjoyment factor for ourselves. The reason I believe we should do this is because if you enjoy the exercise, you will push yourself harder. Whether you like it or not, it's going to happen consciously and subconsciously. So, I will give you an example from my own experience, and I believe that will give you a good understanding of why I think this. So, I used to do standard barbell squats. I did enjoy them. They were fun, they were heavy. But I started getting problems as the weight started going up. So, first off, I started getting some balance issues once I reached 80 kg for reps. Then that started forcing me to keep taking wider and wider stances. And by the point I reached 100 kilograms, I started doing something I call sumo squatting. And that's a bit of a strange thing to do, to sumo squat, because it's just not a standard squat. I still felt it in the quads, but it just looked a bit weird and I didn't enjoy it as a movement pattern. Also, when I did reach, as I started reaching higher kilograms, I also started having issues with my hip flexors, which ultimately is not a good thing and could lead to potential injuries. So I had to change something. And the problem is, it couldn't just be weight because I just didn't have the biomechanics to do it. I tried putting weights below my feet and all other things, but it just didn't work. So I decided to try something else. I decided I'm going to try different squatting exercises, different variations of a squat, more precisely. And that's when I did a pendulum squat. My gym had one, a machine, it still has it. And wouldn't you know it, I enjoyed it. The movement was, I didn't have to worry about balance. All I had to worry about was pushing with my quads, and I still had that squat pattern. And all of a sudden, my quad gains exploded. I started becoming a lot stronger, a lot quicker, and I was gaining muscle mass on my quads. And that means that was a good decision for quad gains. And I genuinely enjoy the exercise. I like it far more than the regular barbell squat because I don't have all these issues I have to worry about for my hip flexors and the balance of the weight. And now I can squat and squeeze out more weight out of my quads. And that also sort of reached a point, a too high point when the weight started getting too much because it started getting a bit too fatiguing too quick. So again, I did squeeze out a lot of mass from this exercise and I enjoyed it. So then I took made another change, which was going to a hack squat machine. And in the hack squat, I again started making new gains, improving there, the new movement pattern, and it didn't give me those issues of balance and hip flexors, and the new issue of the pendulum squat where I was actually using so much weight that it started pressuring me in terms of just pure weight. So that's why I mean the enjoyment factor. You kind of need to prioritize it in order to make gains. If you enjoy the exercise, you will be more focused on it and you will want to progress more on it. You kind of have to nerd out about the exercise in order to improve at it because that's your biggest motivator. And motivation is the thing that makes you grind harder. And gaining muscle happens by grinding as hard as you possibly can, correctly, that is. You do need proper form. Okay, that being said, how should you choose an exercise? I would say try different variations of exercises. First off, do everything. Try hack squat, try pendulum squat, whatever other squat there is, until you find something that you actually want to do. And you should do it for a sort of long-term period, let's say 6 months at least. I think that is the minimum time you have to put into an exercise to really squeeze out gains. And I think the maximum is probably like 3-4 years. You can continue doing it more than that, but it kind of seems to me that 3-4 years of non-stop one exercise without any changes is a bit overkill. The exception to this could be the squat and deadlift themselves because they have pretty much infinite gains you can get, but still keep that in mind. Another thing, do not follow studies or EMG results. Yes, they can tell you what is optimal, but optimal isn't really correct for a couple of reasons. First off, if you don't enjoy it, you're not gonna push you might even skip it. If you don't like squatting and you skip the leg day because you don't like squatting, guess what? That is the most suboptimal shit you can put in your workout. So yeah, don't do that. Another reason why it's not as good as you might think is because everyone is different. And by that what I mean is a study is going to show you gains on a squat. Most people are going to be at some average, right? They're going to be in the middle. But you're going to have a few outliers. Some of them here at the top, some of them at the bottom. You might be an outlier. You might be at the bottom, you might be at the top. Who knows? You have to try. But you have to remember that you might be at the bottom. If you just don't make any progress on that exercise, it's not a good exercise for you. Even if it's the best exercise on average. But that's it, it's just an average. So you have to keep that in mind, that it might not be the best exercise for you. You have to figure that out for yourself through trial and error. There's just no other way. And you have to keep in mind that if you, in some On some exercises, you'll be at the bottom, on some, you'll be at the top. For let's say biceps, like for standard barbell curl with the bar, you might get super high gains. You might be an outlier. But then you grab an easy bar and you might all of a sudden go to the lower zone. These small adjustments could make such changes. Usually it's not that drastic of a difference, but it is possible. So keep that in mind, that these differences do occur for you as an individual, and you have to adapt to them and adapt to your own stimuli. And I will repeat factor number 1 in choosing an exercise: prioritize safety. You have to be safe. Nothing is going to lose you more gains than an injury. That is the number 1 loss of gains. If you break your knee, you lose gains all over your entire body. So don't injure yourself. Train safely. I would like to add how I've changed a variation of an exercise for myself due to the enjoyment factor. Now, this isn't as serious as the squat I mentioned, but it also shows you that there are different reasons why you could change an exercise, and you are the one who decides when and why to change them. So I was used to do overhead press, a standing overhead press, and my lower back would fatigue. Now, there are many reasons for this, but I assume it was because of the heavy deadlifts and my back extensions that I was doing. My lower back was very strong, but at the end of the day, it fatigued in an overhead press. So, and the point of an overhead press is for my anterior delts to fatigue. They were sort of fatiguing, but they weren't the reason why I was failing. And that means the exercise was suboptimal, even though it's the optimal exercise. So please keep in mind that because it's optimal doesn't mean it's optimal. You just have to keep that in mind. So what did I do? First off, I did a seated dumbbell press. And I like that exercise. I enjoyed it. I started making gains. Good exercise overall. But a different problem occurred there where the dumbbells started getting a bit too heavy, and kicking them up started becoming annoying to the point where I could sometimes accidentally have a little loose movement and feel some shoulder pain. And that's not something I want to do when experienced, because a random shoulder injury because I'm kicking a dumbbell up is the dumbest thing that can happen. And I was using absolute full range of motion. There was nothing that I wasn't ego lifting. I did make sure to use the range of motion. The dumbbells just started getting heavy for me. So my adaptation to this was do a machine dumbbell press. And honestly, I enjoy it. It hits the delts very well. I would say there's a bit less stimulus, about 5% I feel it, than the seated dumbbell press, but there is no issues in terms of actually injuring myself and kicking those heavy dumbbells up. So for me, that is a preference I have. I'm okay to sacrifice a bit of my gains to make it slower. From in a 10-year journey, maybe half a year slower gains on my anterior delt because of that. I'm fine with that, I'm perfectly okay with something like that. And that's the reason I want to share that, because I want you to know that you can do the same if you want to. You're the one who decides how you train, and what your priorities are. You don't have to make decisions simply based on analysis and data, as the standing overhead press would be the number 1 in that case, but it's actually suboptimal for me. Then the optimal exercise is actually the seated dumbbell press, but because there's a risk for injury, I decided to change that as well. And I think safety is priority. Maybe I'm being a bit too safe, but at the end of the day, I don't want to injure my shoulder. If I injure that, everything else goes to hell. So, yeah, no thank you. Now, I would like to add please keep in mind that just because you do not like an exercise right now, that doesn't mean you won't like it in 2, 3 years. It's completely possible that right now you don't like, let's say, a barbell curl, a straight barbell curl, but after you get stronger biceps and forearms, you might like it in 2, 3 years. The movement might be easier for you then because you can just hold the bar better. In the start, you might have wrist issues, but at the end of the day, after a couple of years, you might not have those wrist issues anymore because you're a lot stronger. So keep that in mind, and every time you're going to change an exercise, try all exercises once again. Even the ones that you thought that you would dislike and hate, try them again. You might be surprised what you would like. I have personally found exercises that I dislike, and then trying them again at a later time, I started to enjoy them. An example of this is the overhead tricep extension with ropes. I enjoy doing that exercise now. In the beginning, I didn't like it, but because in the beginning I was a weak little bitch and I couldn't even pull the rope up, and it was pulling me back. Now I can actually handle the weight, so now I like it. That's an example. You might have different reasons, but please try them again. Do not remove any exercise variation for good. Also, being strong in every variation of an exercise is probably the way you will get big. If you're strong at every bench press variation, you're probably gonna have a big fucking chest. Yeah, that's how it works. It's pretty basic. Also, keep in mind that after a couple of years of training, you will actually be stronger. You will have more muscle, you will have better technique, and you will in general be training differently. So this will definitely change how you will view every single exercise variation. And it to the point where even you having stronger shoulders could change how you're doing chest exercises, or vice versa, because everything affects everything. Even having stronger legs could affect how you bench press, especially if you're 1 rep maxing. Stronger leg drive equals stronger bench. So, in general, the point of the gym is for you to surpass your limits. Yeah, like fucking Goku. You are essentially doing the same thing, you're just not a super alien. The idea is to become bigger and stronger. You do this by finding ways to improve your current lifts. You are far more likely to improve on a lift if you enjoy it. Even if it is suboptimal, but suboptimal in this case is to get less gains with the optimal exercise than with the suboptimal exercise that you do that fits your current needs and wants. Please keep that in mind. Your enjoyment will make you train harder. You will nerding out about an exercise, as I said earlier, is the thing that gets you thinking about it. How to contract your muscles better, how to push harder, how to get that next rep in, what position to take. You start looking up information, and that's how you improve. You do everything both in the gym and outside the gym to improve the exercise because you love the exercise. Now, if you don't like it, the stereotypical squat, guess what most people do when they don't like it? They skip leg day. Do you think if you do a hack squat, but you're fine with doing it and you go to the gym and do it, it's worse than having a squat in your program because it's better and you skip it because it's too heavy? Please keep that in mind. That is, you have to do whatever keeps you in the gym, keeps you on the grind, and keeps you improving. That is the most important thing. Lastly, I would like to say that every big natural lifter I have seen, in general, enjoys training. I have not seen a big natural who hates training. I just haven't. I don't think it really exists. I don't think you can hate training and be big. So what that means is your job as a lifter, if you want to gain size, that is to find a way to enjoy lifting so that you can be consistent and or be able to progress over the course of a couple of years. You are the one who has the power to make the workout enjoyable. And you have to find something that you like doing, that you can do consistently, and progress it. Now, there are coaches that can help you with this, but I will also say that most coaches suck ass. So you're better off relying on yourself to find what you enjoy. And if you do have a coach, kind of beat them through the arms and tell them what you want and explain to them what you need. If they can't handle it, find a new coach. Additionally, plateaus exist as well, but that's a different topic altogether. But enjoying the exercise will make it far easier to break the plateau, and I do mean far easier. If you hate an exercise and you have to push heavy every time to break through a plateau, you're like 3 weeks not progressing a rep, always doing either your previous max or 1 or 2 reps below your previous max, and you hate the exercise, it feels terrible. But if you enjoy the exercise, at least you're okay with just pushing yourself to the max. You know, and that's a big difference. It's actually a big difference because if you hate it, you might subconsciously stop earlier without you even realizing it. But if you love it, you might accidentally push further. And that's the big difference. That is actually enormous. Imagine because you hate the exercise, you stop at 8 reps instead of 9. But if you love it, you stop at 10. Imagine you push through 10 and you break the plateau just because of sheer willpower. That is a huge difference. Honestly, I think that is the difference between big gains and no gains. So please keep that in mind when training and continue to enjoy your training and find ways to enjoy it. Okay guys, that is it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and please feel free to leave a comment so that we can have a conversation or a discussion. And also feel free to subscribe, like the video, and tell me if you want me to make more of these types of videos, because I do enjoy talking about the gym, and I do think this has not been discussed thoroughly in the current gym sphere. And I want there to be more transparency regarding these things, because I believe they are important for the average lifter, not even the average lifter, every lifter who doesn't talk about this. And lastly, guys, again, I want to repeat myself. Please don't do roids and train safely, because that is the most important thing.